So I am doing something I've never done before today in all of my years of digital planning and being a digital planner designer. Today I am going to do a full mid-year reset. I'm actually going to hop into a new planner. I'm hopping into the Cyberry mid-year. Starts in July and ends in June 2026. So it'll feel like a nice little fresh start, and I definitely need that while we're in the middle of the year. I can't believe by the time I'm posting this video, it'll already be July, and that will just be mind-blowing to me. But one other thing, aside from jumping into a mid-year planner, which I've done numerous times, especially on this channel before, I'm actually going to give portrait a go as a landscape girly since 2018, 2019. I'm gonna give that a good attempt. And then I am also going to try and switch apps. So I love GoodNotes. I have been using GoodNotes since GoodNotes 4 was a thing, and there wasn't like custom text and so many different tools. There were so many different workarounds with the things that we wanted to do in GoodNotes at the time. But now we're on GoodNotes 6, and there's so many new features with more and more coming out each day. So after using GoodNotes for so many years, I honestly just want to try out some more apps. I have tried out numerous apps on this channel before and have done tons and tons and tons of app deep dives on multiple note-taking apps that I feel are just up to par with GoodNotes or even better in some ways. And so while I did deep dives on those and I switched to those for a few weeks, I never really stuck with it. And that is not to say that the apps were not good or that I wouldn't recommend them. It's literally just because I'm stuck in my own ways, and I have been using GoodNotes since GoodNotes 4 was a thing. So it kind of just feels like one of those things where you just kind of get stuck into it, like an ecosystem of devices and things. You just kind of get stuck into it and it's hard to break out. So today I'm going to try a real attempt of breaking out. I'm going to be giving noteful a go. I am in my new office. I finally got moved, technically settled. There are still boxes everywhere and construction and just mess in here. It's definitely not done, but I'm going to strive for getting things done and not having every tiny little detail be perfect before I finally just press start, because if I waited until I was perfect, KDigitalStudio would not be here. I started when I was, less than perfect at things. So we're just gonna get into it. Everything will be linked in the description, but hopefully you enjoy this video. If you have any requests of videos you'd like to see in the future, or how you would like me to adjust these plan with me's, do let me know. But hopping in, let's go. Okay, so this is the iPad I'm using. This is the newest iPad Air. This is the 13-inch size. The main reason why I use a lot of my planners in landscape is because I actually use my iPad in landscape too. Like, this is just how I use my iPad. When I'm drawing in Procreate, when I'm streaming videos, and I'm browsing the web, it's just kind of like a laptop to me. I like it in this orientation. And even when I took notes in college, I still took it landscape, even on the tiny, tiny lecture desks that we had. It just felt more natural and nicer to me. However, I know a lot of people love portrait because it's more notebook-like, which makes sense for planners and notebooks and note-taking. This is already going to be quite the adjustment of trying to switch to a portrait planner when I don't normally even use my iPad in portrait, and then also a new app. But I think it'll be a lot of fun. So the app that I'm going to give a great shot to is Noteful. A lot of people in the community, in the digital planning community, are switching to Noteful and giving it a real go because a lot of the features in Noteful are nice for digital planning specifically. So I do have a deep dive on Noteful. If you want to check that out, I'll be sure to have that linked down below. But this is what the interface looks like. It's a little bit different, obviously, than GoodNotes. It's not my favorite interface, but I'm gonna put that aside for now. And I'm switching into the Cyberry mid-year planner. So I'm gonna come down to my plus button and import file. Now the download library itself is in landscape, but I will be downloading a portrait version of the planner. And so I'm just going to make sure I have my hand mode selected and hit begin download. And with the Cyberry mid-year planners this year, there are 3 different versions. And of course you can download any version, switch between any of the different versions and so on. So the classic version is what you would expect of the Cyberry digital planner. It is the hyperlinked monthly, weekly, daily pages, as you would expect. The light version only has hyperlinked monthly and weekly pages, which means you need to add in the daily pages as you use them if you use daily pages in this version. And the essential versions just has hyperlinked monthly pages, so you can use weekly and daily pages as you need them. They won't be hyperlinked in this version. So it really just depends if you want just hyperlinked monthly, or if you want hyperlinked monthly and weekly, or if you want everything hyperlinked monthly, weekly, and daily. I'm going to start off with just using the classic version. I'm going to use Sunday Start. Okay, so now that that's ready to go, I'm just going to click the share icon here for my portrait planner and select noteful from that menu, and we're ready to go. Very similar import process as GoodNotes. So for my setup, I do actually want to start with setting up my monthly, just because I feel like I really need to get a grip on like what's happening this month. So I'm going to tap July, long press it seems like for noteful. And what I like to do is I actually like to put in all of my appointments, deadlines, meetings, anything that I want to get a notification for, and just any other routine or recurring things on my Apple calendar, because I like to plan just a month in advance, but sometimes with appointments and meetings, there are several months, several weeks in advance, things like that. So I like to put all of that in my Apple calendar, and then when it's time to plan the month in my digital planner, I'll just refer to my Apple calendar to make sure I get those crucial dates down. So to start, we're going to go in with my text tool here, and I'm going to start by putting in my finances. And here I'm just using Scribble, that way I can still handwrite but have it convert to text. I'm going to have that selected, and I'm going to change to my new favorite font that I've created, and we'll have linked below, also in the shop as well, called Noted. Now I'm just going to duplicate it so I already have my styling and everything ready to go, and then I can use Scribble again to get the rest of my finances. Okay, so now that I have my finances in, I'm going to go in and add in any events or meetings or appointments or things like that. All right, so now that I have everything in that I need on the specific days, now I can go in and really make it look a lot better and easier to read. I love color coding and using icons, still getting used to noteful, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to the pen tool. Looks like they have different pen options: fountain pen, calligraphy pen, a marker, ballpoint pen. I'm going to go with the ballpoint pen, 0.38, a little too big for what I want. I have Apple Pencil Pro, so I can use the squeeze feature here to quickly hop into this, but I'm going to reduce that to 0.2 millimeter to see how I like that. And I do like that a little bit better. And then I'm going to change it to a gray. Yes, I like that. So what I'm going to do is put things like payments or kind of all-day events at the very bottom and kind of create this dividing line. And so I'm just going to zoom out a little bit and then just draw and hold my line. Again, very similar to GoodNotes in that aspect. That way I can move these kind of below this line here. Have that there. And then put timed appointments here in the center. So Noteful is definitely a lot more fluid than GoodNotes. Like I can zoom out like this and have a lot of, excess space around here, which might be good if you're kind of very handsy with your iPad. Like I don't have any issues with palm rejection and resting my hand on my iPad when I'm using any app. But if you kind of like having additional space around your pages, zoom in and out, this is definitely the app for that. Using the text is also a lot different in here because whenever I'm using a text box in Noteful, I can actually adjust the bounds of the box. And you can do this similarly in GoodNotes too. I do find it easier to use and a lot more fluid in Noteful, which I particularly enjoy. Okay, with a few more things adjusted like that, I'm going to also go in and add in my little stickers and widgets and just have a little bit more fun with this. So for July, I actually created a sticker set called Dulce Doodles. It's very kind of Italian summer-esque coastal grandma-y-ish. So I'm going to go in and add those in there. So let me grab my sticker set from here. And very similarly to GoodNotes, Noteful essentially has their version of elements here as well. And I've started offering Noteful elements collections and along with the GoodNotes Elements collections I was already offering, just since I know many of you are making that switch to noteful and trying out noteful as well. One thing that I really like about the portrait planner that you don't necessarily get with the landscape planner, though I do love the space of the landscape monthly, the portrait planner has this kind of excess space here at the bottom, and that's really good for things like monthly habits or goals or other stickers or widgets and stuff to make it, like, you know, make it your own, make it look even nicer on the monthly page. So I do really like that. So I can't wait to go in and add in a few of these. I want to start with goals, and I'm gonna have goals here. And then I think I'm going to use some of those frames to kind of outline that out. Using the image tool here also, like resizing these and rotating these also feels a lot more fluid. It feels like GoodNotes kind of locks you in a little bit. It's not as, you know, easy and I feel like smooth as far as rotating and using images. So I do like that aspect of noteful. Also, I have a little pattern here that I can use, and I'll use that for Independence Day. And this is where I can really use one feature that many people love and wish would come to GoodNotes is layers. So what I can do is come over here and hit move to layer. So in this icon under here, I can actually add a layer, and I'm going to actually have this be kind of my base layer, and I'm going to rename it base layer. And now for my base layer, I'm just going to lasso this and move to layer base. And that way it moves everything behind my handwriting and text layer, which we saw on this one. And that's great because I can actually come in and log certain elements that I add. And it's just really cool that you can have these different layers. So if you do have the free version of Noteful, you will be limited by the layers. But I feel like if you just have a base layer and put all the things that you want to lock down and not necessarily move around, then that will be great for your base layer, and then everything can go on that top layer. But of course, if you find that you really are enjoying Noteful, go for it. But I have my base layer locked down, and so now whenever I go to lasso anything on my other layer, my handwriting and text layer, I can do that, which is pretty cool. I like how that looks for my Independence Day. I do think I want to add in an additional sticker here or two. I might go with my ice cream cone, because I feel like that is just a lot of fun for Independence Day. All right, I do want to do a little bit of color coding just so I don't have kind of this wall of text here. So I'm gonna hop in and actually pull in some of the colors from this Dulce Doodles stack to color code. All right, so I'm gonna select my highlighter tool and I'm gonna come over here to the side panel. And this is really cool that you can have kind of your favorite colors here along the side, similar to how you can in GoodNotes. You can do it based off a grid, a specific style, if you want to turn on, you know, a specific pen size and a style that you use other than your current pen while you're marking these as favorites. That way you can set like different elements of how you use pens, highlighters, and so on for your planning. What I'm going to do is actually come to wheel, and one thing that I really love about Noteful that I wish GoodNotes would implement is it including the hex codes here along the side. I just absolutely love that. But I'm going to go with the green here. I'm going to replace the green. I do want to keep that yellow. So I'm going to come here with my green, and I'm going to come over to wheel and tap this eyedropper icon, and then I can run this over any color I want to pick up on my spread. And I do want to pick up that color. I'm going to come to my purple as well, eyedropper, and then run this over my darker blue here. And now I have that as well. And I'm going to use the lighter color to represent different events or meetings or things going on and just highlight. I do actually like that width. I do find that width to be perfect for what I'm using for my text here, and that's at 4.9 mil. And then I'm going to switch to my darker highlight here, and that's where I'm going to highlight in just these payment options here. One thing I've noticed is that it kind of follows where your pen goes. It doesn't just automatically snap. So if I tap this, I can toggle on draw straight lines, or you can keep that toggled off if you want it to pretty much follow your pen exactly. You can see here that it darkens the overlay whenever you overlap highlighter, which of course is very realistic, and I do appreciate and like that. So that is a look at Noteful. I'm gonna go in and add my goals now, and I'm gonna switch to my pen here, and I'm actually going to grab this blue color and write out some goals for my monthly. Like all of the kind of text tools and apps like these, I find them all to be quite finicky. And I think that's just the nature of Scribble and handwriting and kind of text boxes with kind of annotation apps like these. It's just finicky, and I just find that to be true across all of the apps. And Noteful seems to be no exception. GoodNotes, I find, has one of the worst, or almost like so incredibly finicky text tools that I almost never use the text tool in GoodNotes and just use my handwriting. So I do find notefuls to be a little bit easier to use, but of course still finicky. And I just find that to be true of all of these note-taking apps that I've tried, just because of, I feel like, the nature of these kind of annotating PDF apps. So I saved a few images off Pinterest to add into my spread to experiment a little bit more with the images tool, because that's a tool I use a lot, especially when it comes to adding in my own photos, but also adding in stickers if I decide to do split screen and drag and drop between the two. Now, since I'm using my iPad in portrait, I can't imagine that split screen is very nice to use, especially since, you know, productivity and kind of window management, it just works best in the landscape. So this is going to take some getting used to for using my iPad in portrait. I don't love this setup. Clearly stuff is, you know, very limited with kind of this, you know, horizontal space across the iPad. So I'm not loving that, but you know, this does give me a nice writing experience with the portrait version. I'm going to experiment with drag and drop in Noteful, and it would work as you expect. I'm going to click crop, and it looks like crop is limited to Noteful Pro, which I don't know why I don't already have anyway. All right, so with Noteful Pro, now I can freehand crop this. I'm gonna put that there, and then I'm going to go in and select an image from the window. I do like the pop-up here for adding in images. And this one I'm going to resize. I might also move this here. I do like this frame feature. That is a lot of fun for sure. Kind of create your own sticker almost in a way with that. I do like that. And I'm just gonna leave this as my monthly spread. Everything is all ready to go and planned. The cyberry planner has a spot for notes and a vision board and finances, goals, and your reflection. But I'm going to leave it here for my monthly. We'll also quickly show you the vertical, horizontal, and custom weekly. And it looks like the setup is very similar as in GoodNotes, because I designed the cyberry planner to not show grid lines until you're fully zoomed in and actually writing and adding text. That way it looks really clean whenever you're zoomed out. And it looks like Noteful allows for that as well. So I can zoom in, see my grid lines to help keep things neat, but then as I zoom out, they become less visible. This year's mid-year planner also has the built-in notebook again. And if I go back to my main page, you'll also see a template library for daily and weekly templates. That way you can actually switch up your daily or weekly pages. And if you want to try out a different weekly page, this will be a great option for pasting that on to your custom weekly. So for example, I might want to try out this weekly tracking page. I had a ball designing this page, by the way, and so I think I might actually want to use that. But rather than duplicating this page, I wanted to link out to the custom weekly page of this upcoming week. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to lasso everything, and we'll see how well this works out for me. So I'm just going to lasso kind of the page design itself and hit take a screenshot. And I'm going to share and hit copy. And now cancel, and we'll cancel out of all of that. And we'll head back into July and my custom weekly for this upcoming week. And I'm gonna long press and hit paste. And then just resize this. I'm gonna move this to my base layer. So now when I'm writing or drawing things on my page, it's not actually picking up my page, which is much harder to navigate with GoodNotes just because I'm having to come to my lasso and deselect, you know, things like images to not accidentally pick up stuff that I paste as a template. So Noteful, much easier to actually copy and paste and use templates in your planner. But I will say when it comes to kind of copying and pasting these screenshots of these templates so you can have it on a very specific hyperlinked page, like this hyperlinked page, the quality in the screenshot does seem to be a lot less in GoodNotes. Now there is going to be some pixelation with screenshots that you take in GoodNotes as well, but I feel like this is a lot more pixelated than it is in GoodNotes, even with, you know, keeping with the same aspect ratio that it gives you from your screenshot. I think a lot of this will come down to just me getting used to Noteful while also being in portrait. Maybe I should have switched to Noteful first, gave landscape more goes in Noteful before changing to different. And Noteful has been great and easy to use so far. If you've used other note-taking apps, I feel like you'll find it easy to also hop into noteful, and I find that to be the case for many note-taking apps. There are going to be a few little pop-ups and like weird things that happen as you're tapping around and trying to get used to the app, but that's just kind of, you know, par for the course of things that are going to happen as you're experimenting. But I'm really excited about the spread. I love the spread. I'm going blue for this spread, and I haven't had blue in a while on my spread, so I find this to be quite fun. I am going to kind of design and cover some of the other pages in my live planning sessions. So if you aren't already in the Cyberry community, make sure you get joined if you have a Cyberry digital planner. That way you can see those pages in action as well. But this has been quite a fun experiment. So that was switching over into my mid-year planner, switching into a portrait planner, which is new for me, and switching into noteful, which is semi-new to me. I really did have fun kind of experimenting and, you know, just feeling kind of re-inspired with planning. With this move, have just been not planning at all, just because every day is so different and it felt ridiculous, like planning things out just for things not to go as planned, which I know just happens, but with it happening day after day and week after week, I just did not gravitate towards using my iPad and using my digital planner, which in turn also still just made me feel worse. So I'm glad to finally be in a place where I feel like I can use my iPad again, go back into digital planning and kind of experiment and try something new and kind of get out of my own creative rut and my own planning rut. And what better way to do that than trying out a new orientation in a planner I spent so long designing, and I never really got to like play with and experiment very much with my portrait planner other than designing and testing it. Noteful is also great. There's a lot of features in Noteful that aren't necessarily in GoodNotes or aren't in GoodNotes as well as Noteful. Specifically for digital planning, I feel like note-taking can go either way depending on how you like to take your notes. But for planning, for sure, having that layers feature is super duper helpful, especially when it comes to adding in your own templates and images and other things with layers you want to separate. I do have so many different ideas of how layers can be used. So if you're interested in seeing a video dedicated on tips and tricks for using layers and different ideas for how they can be used, do let me know it down in the comments. I'm kind of excited just thinking about the potential of creating something like that and just kind of all of the ideas that were swarming in my head as I was using Noteful, which is what I need. So that is a look at my planner. I just planned the month for now. I'm hoping to do some of the other pages, a vision board, kind of setting up how I would do the finances in the Cyberry mid-year, as well as a few of the other pages. And what's great about the Cyberry mid-years this year is the ability to have the additional daily and weekly templates. So I'm excited to also experiment with additional templates that we haven't had before in the Cyberry planners. So this was fun, and also my new noted font. It looks gorgeous in my planner, so quite excited about that. Everything will be linked below if you liked this setup. If you're switching to Noteful with me, do let me know down in the comments. We can learn together and adapt together. But until then, you will enjoy my full deep dive into using Noteful if you want to learn a little bit more about the app and how things work and how I approached it from a note-taking standpoint as well. So I will be seeing you in that video if you're still binging YouTube videos. But if not, I will see you next week with another one. So